Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host today, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Kenji and Catherine and Dan and Jason and Lori. And today we're going to continue our discussion of Sacred Contracts by
Very
Caroline
cool.
Myss. We're in chapter 1 at the section titled Flying Home on page 31 if you have the hard copy or the softbound copy. And but before we get going with that, I want to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then Catherine, you can take it away with the reading.
Hey, good morning. It's Jason from Tampa. Glad to be here.
Is that Bigfoot in the back?
Lori
Kenji.
Emmons in Denver.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Happy to
Lori.
be here.
Kenji Gorham.
Dan Sissick in Las Vegas.
Good morning, it's Catherine Clement, and we're starting at Flying Home. Since the earliest days of written history, and probably long before, dreams have provided a symbolic pathway to our hidden fears and desires. By revealing to us the language in which our psyche speaks, dreams illuminate not only the dilemmas or opportunities that we may be facing right now, but also the very way our soul visualizes those situations. Sigmund Freud, who called dreams the royal road to the unconscious, Carl Jung, and many others since have all presented elaborate methods for interpreting dreams through their complex symbolic imagery. But the key to some dreams lies in a simple understanding of the meaning of a central image. Over the past 18 years, for instance, I have had a series of related dreams that all revolved around one consistent image, an airplane taking flight. The first dream featuring this airplane occurred in 1982, when I was at a tremendously low point in my life. Just a few years before, I had been getting increasingly disillusioned with my work as a journalist. Then one day I was given an assignment to cover a workshop on death and dying by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. The level of suffering in that workshop and the astonishing way in which Kubler-Ross was able to help people devastated by the death of a loved one inspired me to return to school to study religion and mythology. But the postgraduate degree in theology that I earned didn't help me find my niche any more than my BA in journalism had. 2 years after leaving graduate school, I was struggling to find a clear direction for my life. Working as a secretary in the Department of Pharmacology at Northwestern University, I could not figure out where I was going. I felt as if I were living on a pendulum that was oscillating between worlds. My spiritual studies lifted me up, but then I was swung back to earth in the panics and fears of ordinary life. I became stuck in a deep depression that began to feel like a thick mental weight, kicking off what would become a decade of severe migraine headaches. After months of this dark time, I reached the point at which I said to a friend, "I've got to do something. Part of me is dying, and if I don't do something soon, I will die." I meant it. I felt that I had lost my trust in life itself, even though at the same time I still completely trusted that God would somehow lead me through it all. I was living in a psychologically and emotionally contradictory state, which made me even more desperate. Then I had a very unusual, Jung might have called it a big dream. I was the only passenger in a small but high-powered jet plane. My plane was still on the ground, idling in what looked like a stall in a barn that held a number of other planes in similar stalls. Each of the other planes took off in succession as they were meant to, but my plane continued to wait for permission from the control tower, while I grew angrier by the minute. Finally, I relayed a message to whomever was sitting in the control tower. "Hey, what about me?" "Turn your motor off," came the reply. "We're holding you until the skies are safe for your journey." My plane was in a stall, just as I was stalled physically, emotionally, personally, professionally. Yet the control tower, which to me, even in the dream, represented God, sent the message that I was cared for and watched over. Still asleep, I became saturated in the feeling that God was in his heaven and all was right with my world. When I awoke from that dream, I was content to wait for my appropriate time of departure. I lost my desperation to find a concrete direction for myself. Every part of my life looked different from that moment onward. I was being watched over. There was a plan for me. I was already in motion behind the stillness and frozenness of my external life. Buoyed by the reassuring message in my dream, I decided to enjoy the emptiness of purpose in which I was floating. My job as a secretary provided everything I needed to survive in the physical world. I had a paycheck as well as the precious gift of time to do whatever I wanted after work. I had no heavy professional assignments hanging over my head, no deadlines, and no stress from not being able to do my job well. I had a liberated life. I was free to spend time with friends and family, and I enjoyed life in a carefree way that I have not been able to do since. Because I had absolutely no private agenda or ambitions within the political and financial organization where I worked, I could not have cared less if I lost my job. I had no desire to achieve any rank or privilege among the group of professionals with whom I worked, and this made me feel happy. Although in the eyes of the scientists for whom I worked, I had nothing, I actually had everything. These scientists gave me my first education in how awful human beings could become an act when motivated by insecurity and ambition. Competing for grant money, promotions, and power, the scientists were held captive by their fear of others' success. When I went home each evening, I left on my desk everything related to my work, but they went home with briefcases filled with the weight of work and fear. In that occupation, I learned one of the most spiritually productive truths that I now rely on each day of my life. When you do not seek or need external approval, you are at your most powerful. Nobody can disempower you emotionally or psychologically. This spiritual security gave me a liberated feeling that was practically euphoric. It made me appreciate why the famous line, "To thine own self be true," in Shakespeare's Hamlet is considered a spiritual commandment. You cannot live for prolonged periods of time within the polarity of being true to yourself and needing the approval of others. At some point, you will realize that you are doing harm to yourself by being what you think you should be so that someone else approves of you. In the language of a contract, compromising who you are to gain the approval of another is a very precise example of giving away a piece of your spirit. Eventually, you give away more and more of yourself until you have no strength or sense of self left. I understood then that manipulation is the art making another person's spirit dance for personal amusement, and only through honoring oneself do we become strong enough to refuse to dance. My airplane dream led me to a freedom from my own mental weight, depression, and anxiety about my future and purpose. Indeed, within a few years, I met a couple who shared my growing interest in human consciousness, and they invited me to join them in starting a publishing company in New Hampshire. 13 years later, my life had changed dramatically. I had become a professional medical intuitive, teacher, and author. In 1995, when I started work on Anatomy of the Spirit, I had another airplane dream, the first since the initial one in 1982, and it proved to be the next in a series. The airplane became the specific symbol or archetype, not unlike a private phone number, that would be used in my dreams to get my attention. Each airplane dream was a direct communication from the divine. The airplane signaled that I was following the right course, one that had been laid out for me and that I had somehow agreed to. Each dream also measured the progress I was making towards completing my flight plan and getting a book off the ground. At the time of the dreams, I was feeling that I had not yet reached the depth of the message I wanted to communicate in Anatomy of the Spirit. I was walking around it, so to speak, but had not yet seen its full meaning. In the first dream of the anatomy sequence, I was running through an airplane to catch a flight, but the plane left without me. Sometime later, I dreamed that I was about to board my flight when I was paged on the loudspeaker and a voice told me, "Please pick up the white phone." I knew that if I had answered the page, the plane would leave without me. Nevertheless, I decided to take the call. As I lifted the receiver of the white wall phone at the airport, I turned around to see my airplane take off, just as I knew it would. I expected to hear a voice when I put the phone to my ear, someone who would give me the direction I needed on my book, but there was no voice on the other end of that receiver. I hung up the phone, turned to face an empty airplane gate, and left the airport feeling that I had been abandoned. In the next dream, I made it onto the plane, only to be told that there was no seat for me and I would have to get off. The heat of humiliation flushed over me as I looked at the faces of hundreds of people staring at me as if I had invaded their airspace. Air, for me, represented the astrological element of the mind, and I took the dream to mean that I was traveling through conceptual territory where I did not yet belong. Shortly after that dream, I was still frustrated that I had not yet found the core message of anatomy. But as I was lecturing to a group of 28 students, I turned to write something on a white flip chart and instantly downloaded an image that merged three great mystical traditions and their biological implications: the seven chakras of the East, the seven Christian sacraments, and the 10, I've never seen that word, the 10 Sephirot of the Tree of Life from the Jewish Kabbalah. In less than a second, I received, I understood, I accepted, and I started the book over again. During the next dream in this sequence, I finally was able to board my plane. I spotted an empty seat way back in coach, but as I was heading for it, I noticed the flight attendant looking for me. I tried to avoid her, and on reaching my seat, I slid my body as low in the seat as possible and covered my face with the magazine. But it was too late. We had made eye contact, and it was evident that I would not be allowed to stay on board. Besides, even in the dream, I had come to the realization that I simply could not hide from anyone. Had I been meant to be in the seat, I would have been allowed to stay, but it had someone else's name on it, and nothing I could do would change the fact that I was not scheduled to be in that seat. I was despondent. I thought that I was finally doing what I was supposed to be doing, and I was extremely eager for the manuscript to be finished. That was the problem, I later figured out. I was too eager. The manuscript would be completed on time, but not in my time, and I still had a great deal of work to do on it before it would be accepted. Ideas and insights that had seemed to me self-evident needed fuller development to become airborne, and so I wasn't being given the green light just yet. Trying to see how much further this goes. It still keeps going for a long time, so we might just have to, let me see here.
Looks like in the hard copy book, we've got 3.5 pages till the next section. So do you want to stop here?
Well, if it's only, well, Dan's, okay, Dan does.
You
Well,
wanna
yeah,
stop here?
but if other people want more, I'm fine.
Well, this is a good place to stop. I wasn't being given the green light just yet.
Okay. I will make a note and we'll stop here today.
I'm sure everybody can relate to this part of trying to please other people.
Yep. What is today? 3rd, 5/3/25. Okay. Yeah, I underlined a number of different things in this section. You know, I was reminded when she first started talking about dreams at the beginning of this section that we had talked about trying to do a book on interpreting dreams, and we forgot about it. Forgot about that idea. So maybe that's something to
Because
do at
we
some point.
needed this information before we started that.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Maybe that was our plane telling us not to board that yet until we
Yeah.
get this one. But I was gonna say, interesting how, because dreams, I think we all have dreams that we remember that are important to us, that have an impact and somehow make sense. And a lot of times they don't make sense at that time, but when we look back and over time, we realize that, oh, that's what that was really meaning or pertaining to, or, you know, being, you know, and I believe that, for what I believe God uses dreams and uses aspects of that to help um, lead us, guide us, give us direction. Because I'll be honest, I think if I truly heard God's voice speaking to me, I think I would think I'd lost it. You know, I really think I would be thinking, okay, did I, looking around, did I really hear that? Or did anybody else hear, I want to confirm, did anybody else hear that? That type of thing. But I know I've had a few dreams, and sometimes they haven't made sense at the time. In fact, I was pretty confused. And then as I've gone over, grown, gotten older, some of them have come back. And I don't remember all the little ins and outs like she does, but I remember the feeling and the sense. And then come around later and it's like, oh, okay. And I believe that's, sometimes we just play it off too, as just being a dream. And I think sometimes we forget how important dreams can be in giving us insights and helping us, having our subconscious help us understand things that in the light of like everyday things we don't take the time to understand.
I've definitely had dreams that were warning signs or cautions. You missed your plane, or whatever the message was. And one time I heard an audible voice and I ignored it all. And I've spent the last 35 years or so trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be going.
Well, this business about I mean, I completely agree. I don't remember exactly how she said it, but I completely agree about you can't really be on two roads at the same time as far as trying to please and be everything for everyone, and then the other one being true to yourself. And it's, you kind of do want to be on both roads. I mean, it's not that I want to please people, but I do enjoy, um, people not being angry with me. I enjoy helping people out, but there comes a time where you're just so spent and so empty, and you just have like all your energy is farmed out to other people, that you don't have anything left for yourself. And our bodies have to be our number one, because that's what carries our spirit here, but we tend to put our bodies last for some reason. I think it's, as far as looking back at childhood and different things, I think somewhere along the line, we get the feeling that if we pay any attention to ourselves or doing things for ourselves, that we're being selfish or we're vain or we're, all of these negative connotations. At least in my generation, we were pretty much taught to ignore your body, like ignore its emotional needs, ignore its sexual needs, ignore, its needs to have any other emotion except the acceptable one at the moment. Like we get all these mixed messages. And really, from birth, we should be taught to just cherish ourselves and especially our bodies, because as spirits, we couldn't be here having this experience without them. I mean, we could be a ghost hanging around somewhere nagging at somebody, but this is a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you were saying, that from the time, I remember being told, that, you know, to be nice, to be friendly, to respect other people, to do this, to do that, to be going back to the old saying, be what seen and not heard, that type of idea as a kid, and to um just you know maintain, even though I'm a kid, but maintain like a certain dignity, I guess, and it's like at that age, what do I know about dignity? I'm just a kid, but you tend to start figuring it out pretty quick of what's expected around you and what not to do. And then when you get alone, you kind of question yourself when you're alone that, okay, should I be this way now that I'm here by myself or with my brother or sister or whatever, or, within just a family, or should I act that way or that, it's hard, and and I think even as we get older and becoming adults, sometimes that it really carries over. And, you know, I know, like, even now with a couple of friends, I get so caught up in trying to deal with, certain friends and stuff and things like that, and just trying to make them happy and get them okay and pacified, to the point of where I'm just so exasperated and so upset and so irritated that then even when I turn around and want to get back to focusing on what I need to do, I have no energy for myself. And then nothing gets done. And then I'm frustrated with myself because here I am trying to not, I'm trying to get the other person to understand that no, some things, there are things that, you know, you need to do for yourself, and that way I can do what I need to do. But sometimes, these other people don't get it. And in the process of trying to not have a fight or an argument, but somehow you still, it's not now out and out argument, but you feel like you've been through a battle. And then when I'm, done, you're just like, I have no energy now for doing what I want to do. And I waste that time and effort when I could have been doing what I wanted to do and focusing on what I needed to do. And it's hard. And I think, that double-edged sword of trying to make the world happy and keep myself happy, it's hard and it's draining. And sometimes I just want to tell the whole world, go away and leave me alone for a little while.
I was thinking about the kid side of it, of, I wish that we were taught things different when we were younger, and having three kids in the house is a huge it's a huge thing. It's like I want to be able to teach them those kinds of things, but yet at the same time I don't want the yelling and screaming and constantly going on. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if we could teach them to just be however they wanted to be because that's their true whatever. And yet at the same time, we live in this human culture where there's all these different expectations of how you're supposed to behave around other people and or other situations and in life in general, what you should do, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, you see the kids and they're just, you know, full of energy and full of excitement and full of emotions and full of just everything. And it's, it's hard to find that kind of happy medium between allowing them to be everything they want to be in a given moment versus what needs to be getting done in the household at the given moment, you know? I mean, the parents need a break. We need them to be in bed at, you know, we need them to go to bed around 8 so that there's at least a short amount of time where we can all have some peace before we have to go to bed, you know? I mean, there's things like that, or, you know, we have all these chores that need to get done in the house and the kids want to run around like crazies and just make a mess right behind you. And it's like, so it's, I don't know. It's so convoluted, I guess, this human existence, you know, because you have to exist in our human culture, right? And you have to find that way to do that. And yet at the same time, you just don't want to do any of it most of the time. So it's I don't know. I found it interesting when she was sitting here, when she was saying, when she kind of had that realization of, I actually had everything, you know, they the the scientists gave me that first education of how awful human beings could be and become and act when motivated by insecurity and ambition. And they're captive in their fear of others' success. And she said, when you do not seek or need external approval, you are at your most powerful. And uh, I'm like, wouldn't it be nice, you know, if we didn't have all these other people expecting this, that, and the other from us, and we could just be however we wanted to be, you know, and have to worry about paying the bills and I don't know. And then she also said in there, you know, when she had this realization of just being taken care of and she really didn't need to worry about those things. And I'm like, I I don't see it. I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes I see that feeling and have that feeling of okay, everything's all right with the world. And then other times I'm like, yeah, how can I possibly get everything done that I need to do in a day in order to keep things moving in the direction everybody wants to go, you know? So it's a contradiction, I feel like.
Well,
Or sit here and do nothing.
Yeah, it'd be nice to sit here and do nothing for, you
You
know,
would
or
think,
but yet at
it's
the same
not.
time, yeah.
but going back to your point, the 2 points that you were making about her, the one, and it hit me, you know, the one where she said that when she, you know, had a job that basically covered all her needs, but she didn't have to go home worrying and stressing about, you know, she just could go and have time with family and friends and do this and that, which is what we all want. We all really want some aspect of that. But yet, then she talked about the, you know, scientists, you know, taking their briefcase home and stuff, and you know, and in that sense, they're making that conscious decisions to do that, and we make those conscious decisions to do similar things because of expectations that we have for ourselves. And I'm just realizing this, and I've had those moments, you know, like you were saying, where I'm here, I'm like, okay, God, I'm really sensing that you have it all. You're taking care of me. I'm loved. I really have what I need. I have a roof over my head, food in my, you know, house. I have a vehicle that's working as right now, you know. But in that sense, you know, I'm like, I've got, you know, some money in the bank. I'm not fairly rich, but what more do I really need more than that? If I'm honest, in a lot of ways, probably no. But you know, based on this world and the way and getting caught up in, you know, oh, well, and I'm learning, and I tell people now, it's like, you know what, when I was younger, I wanted that big, huge mansion and, that awe-inspiring thing where people, oh, look, they must be, he must be doing really good. And it's like now, if I were to win a lottery or make a lot of money or, you know, working on what I'm working on now, trying to get into building up a bookkeeping business, making the money I want out of that, but I'm sitting there going, I'm perfectly fine with my 1,200 square feet of house that I have here. I can't keep that up. Why would I want something double, three times the size of that to have to, you know, deal with, and always worry and then have the cost and the expense of the upkeep and power. And it's like, no. If I were to hit a lottery or something, and yeah, I would do some things around my house to fix it up, do the things I've always wanted to do. But there is no way in hell I'm going out selling this, buying a bigger. No, no, I don't. I'm learning that there's comfort in some things like that, and the realization that I don't need all that. You know, I could put that time, energy, and effort to better things with my family, with friends, my church, doing, more outreach to help other people with stuff I've always wanted to do. Um, so it's interesting the freeing aspect of that, and knowing that if I have what I need to live and take care of myself and not stress, I don't want the stress of the uh, things popping up to where it's at the wrong time, wrong moment because I don't have the money and the fun. But that to me is the bliss in a way that I want and that I so desperately am trying to reach. And I am loved and I am cared for, and God has given me all the things I need. I'm just not seeing that most of the time.
Yeah, it's that insecurity idea, it's the looking towards the future, like the what ifs of the future and what that might mean. It's like you don't want to be unprepared when the future when you get there, and you don't want to be angry at yourself for not having prepared better, or whatever. And yet at the same time, if we just stop in this moment, like in this moment, everything is fine, everything's perfect, and that's all taken care of, and it's really not that big a deal. If I'm looking in the future, then I'm going, well, I need all this maintenance stuff done with this house, and I need to make sure I have enough money in the bank so that I can, at some point in time stop working. And I got to make sure the business is built up enough that if we're going to pass it on to my son, it's going to be something sustainable for him and that we can retire off of. I mean, there's all these different variables, and when I'm looking into the future and hoping that I'm doing the right thing, then I'm always stressed out. If I'm not thinking about the security of the future, everything is at peace, So it's a whole, it's like finding that kind of happy medium between the two of making sure that I am experiencing as much of this moment as I can while also balancing for the future. And that's where I feel like a lot of our struggle lies, is that we spend so much time focused on the future, we're not experiencing the present, and or we're experiencing too much of the present that we fail for our future self. So
Yeah, that's a great point. I was thinking the same thing there too. And you couple that with what Dan was saying as well, that you want to be there for your friends. Um, however, sometimes that can also get in the way just as much as us focusing on our future worries that we can enjoy the now for ourselves, let alone get anything done for ourselves if we're always trying to be there for friends who, especially those friends who don't reciprocate the help or uh, appreciate the time and energy you're spending on it to help to alleviate some of that burden from you. And then if you're someone who likes to be, you like to be creative, but you're also you also like to be a do-it-yourselfer, then you're kind of you're kind of disabling yourself from being able to accept the help to begin with from others. We're not always prepared to go, to say, well, hey, I'll do this for you if you do this for me, because I think, being a kind of a do-it-yourself person myself, I might want the help from someone, but then I start thinking future worries. Well, the person's probably not going to either show up, or they're going to cause some problems with it that's going to make it less enjoyable, or we're not going to get any work done, or it's going to, it just, you think about that, and that whole time you're doing that, I'm not enjoying the now. And so, yeah, that balance it's so, it seems like it can be difficult to find that balance, especially when you have so many other either distractions or worthy things in your life that people in your life that you love and you love to be around. Next thing you know, though, the time has flown by and you're behind on other things, and you're back into worrying about stuff. So, but yeah, you guys are so spot on in what you're saying there. I liken I liken life to the character in the Rocky IV movie. The captain, I forget his full name, but the guy says, "This I will break you," or something like that.
Yes.
And like we're all supposed to be Rocky and take the hits and still come out swinging and somehow win. But yeah, that's that is so true. I like what you said, Catherine, earlier too, about the energy. We got to find that balance, like Samantha said, but then also that it's very, very important to maintain our bodies so that we can sort of generate that spark inside of us, and be able to not only generate it but also hold it within us and then use it properly, and you know maintain our energy by maintaining ourselves and our bodies. But that's easier said than done too, I guess. But I feel you on that too.
It's definitely easier said than done. I've spent 30 years trying to say, what did I do wrong to end up like this? And trying to eat right and exercise and drink enough water and on and on. Oh, I need this vitamin or I need that vitamin, or how you balance it all out. I still am searching.
I think that's part of what, in the way I look at things, look as the plan that God has for me, and and the purpose that I'm here for. And sometimes in all that, I get off track, and oh look, squirrel, that kind of idea. Oh look, squirrel, and I go off on that tangent because I can be easily, like I'll start something here at home and start and get in and say, okay, I want to do this and get this done. Then I get busy and then I look up and I think Samantha's mentioned this before, and something else will hit me and it's like, oh, well, now I have to go take care of that because now it's in my attention, in my sight, in my view, and okay, that's bothering me. So now I want to go take care of that rather than just sticking in my plan, so to speak, and just get what I need to take care of now and put that off till another moment and then make that my next plan of something to do. But no, it's, it's hard to, you know, accept. And I think that's another part of it. I think it's hard to accept the plan sometimes that we see before us because maybe sometimes it's not what in our heads we think that it's supposed to be. And so I think sometimes we fight it too, and we really try hard to not go down that path because it's not what we really. I think our hearts tell us that, yes, that's really the path you need to go. But in our head, and we overrule and we say, no, but in my head, I see this, and this is where. And I think sometimes that's, like with her, and I think the analogy of using a plane and she's getting on the plane, but being told that's not your seat, you have to get off, or you can't go, or we're sitting here waiting to make sure everything's, is safe for you to travel to where you're supposed to get to. And I think sometimes that's, what we do with, our head over our heart sometimes. And, you know, and vice versa. Sometimes our heart can, you know, win out, and then we realize that, oh, it's not that time yet. We should have done some of these other things first, and it's just for me learning to trust and hopefully learn what the cues and the guideposts or however for her the recurring plane flight. I think we all have that, something that we know that comes in is overarching in our lives, but that we just sometimes don't fully get until we finally it finally hits it. Oh, that's what this is all about, and that's what and kind of like with her when she finally got the whole picture in her head and realizing what the one part she needed, and then she was able to move forward. And sometimes we're just I think we block it sometimes too. I think that's another part of it. We just really block it because we're too afraid ourselves, just in general.
So the author was talking about the plane being a symbol of her being or him being on the right path. Does anybody else kind of get that as well, or?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dreams, the same dream would mean something different to every one of us. They're very subjective. And when I used to go to Dream Circle, that's how we would help, because people would always want to present their dream and then they want to know what you think about it. And so we would go around the circle and each one of us would say, well, if it were my dream, it would mean such and such. And that's the only way you can really interpret it because there's no way to tell what that dream means to someone else, I mean, but if it was my dream, it would mean da 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 da. I haven't had serial dreams like that. I have had dreams, prophetic dreams that have stuck with me, but they weren't in a series like that. I think that's pretty cool, actually. since I've been in so much pain, I very, very rarely sleep deep enough to have a dream. And if I do dream, I don't remember them. Once in a while, I'll wake up and I'll be so excited because I realize that I remember I did have a dream. I don't remember what it was, but I had one. So
Or
Yeah, I've always
I had,
had, oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, sometimes people come to me and ask me what I think about their dream, and I always ask them, well, what does this or that, it's within the dream, what does it mean to you? What does this situation mean to you? What does this person make you think of in any given moment? What's the first thing that comes into your head when it's, you see that person or this situation or this, the symbolic thing, because that's what it all is. It's symbolic for us. It's like, for me, for whatever reason, I have a connection with, like when I have a dream that I have fear feeling, or a, not like extreme fear, but like just that uncomfortable fear of something. I have dreams that, when I have that feeling in a dream and I'm also seeing ghosts in there, that to me always represents me feeling like something is out of my control right now. Some stress thing is out of my control and I'm upset about it. It doesn't always tell me what it is, but I'm usually pretty spot on understanding, oh, okay, I'm way too stressed out right now and it's about this, whatever that is. And it's showing up in my dream as ghosts that I can't control, and I'm a little scared of it. So, that's what shows up for me. But for someone else to have a ghost show up in their dream, it could mean something completely different. So I think we all have to kind of look at those things and recognize that, whatever it is that's showing up in our dreams, those are personal things, and it all depends on what meaning we correlate with those things, right? This is like back when I was younger, I used to have similar type of dreams, but instead of seeing ghosts, my teeth would be falling out. So I would, and then have no control over it. They'd just be like randomly falling out. And that was always a time where I was stressed out about something out of my control. So, I mean, I know that there's probably dream books or whatever that'll tell you this, that, or the other about if you have dreams of your teeth falling out, but it's personal. So I think it's interesting to read books that are like supposed to be dream interpretation books. But again, even something that might, like what Catherine was saying, you go around the circle and every single person is going to have a different thought of what that might mean. So just recognizing that, I think it can be powerful, but, or at least let you know. I don't have a lot of dreams either, Catherine. I mean, I have
Oh,
them.
yeah.
I feel like when I wake up in the morning, I've been somewhere else, but I don't remember where it was most of the time. But, I know it was in dreamland doing something somewhere. I get back and I don't remember it. I'm like, dang it, I missed my vacation.
Well, that's interesting because I've been ever since the Move Quest stuff. Even though I'm not in that, and I want to get into it at some point in time when I get a little extra money and can start working that. But I now have my phone hooked up to for when I take steps and stuff. I just it counts them and stuff. I'm not so tied into it. But I also have set up for like when I go to sleep at night and have it the phone not right next to me, but not far away. And I usually get about a good, 7 hours of sleep or so, which it keeps telling me I'm getting excellent. I've got good sleep consistency, all that. But in that and looking at it, I'm going, okay, yeah, I see I'm getting all this good, but in that, I know that I sleep best when I dream. Somehow, when I really dream, I know I sleep even better. But most of the time, I don't even feel like I dream. I feel like I'm just, I'm dead to the world. And even though I'll be honest, I've told people a few times lately, it's like I think I'm happiest when I'm asleep because I'm not thinking about stuff. I'm not stressed about stuff. I'm not going over. Every now and then I'll have something that will bother me, like Monday night, had an incident, and that incident kind of woke me up and invaded, and then it's like, no, I don't want to deal with this, and I tried to push that out, but otherwise I don't really dream per se, and I would love to, because I think that would be a more sense of me getting a whole night's sleep. Because when I was younger, I used to dream all the time. I would wake up really feeling refreshed and able to. I still wake up and I'm like refreshed, but I'm not refreshed. And I kind of wake up and put myself up, and it's like, okay, now I slept, I've rested, I've gotten according to health experts and science, I've gotten a good amount of sleep, and should feel restored. And I feel restored, but I don't feel restored. It's weird, if you can understand what I'm kind of getting at. It's like, yeah, I can get through this next day, but I don't feel. The best way I can say it, I guess, is, and this is going to sound weird, I don't feel like I'm fully me, even though I'm fully me. If you can kind of understand what I'm getting at,
You're obviously not at peace about something.
hmm hmm I
but
feel like
it's,
sometimes I'll wake up and I just haven't had my little dream vacation.
yeah, and
Like you need that refresher. It's like a break from here that you remember.
yes,
You had it,
yeah,
but you
okay.
slept through
Yeah, I just
it.
missed it. I
Like,
can't remember it, so it doesn't count. Dang it.
Maybe that's part of what it is. Maybe I'm just so, and so maybe I don't want to deal with anything, that I'm like cutting that off when I really shouldn't be cutting that part off. I don't know. It's just, but I haven't thought about it much. But in talking about this little section, it made me kind of think about that. It's like, dang it, I wish I would remember, if I dream, or that I dream something or whatever, it would be nice, once in a while I will wake up and like, oh, I know I dreamed about something, but like you, I can't remember the details. I remember a little bit of the feeling, but I can't remember the detail. Like, no, I want the details, so that way I can then maybe try and make sense of that dream. But it's crazy, that maybe we convolute everything, like you said, maybe we convolute everything up so much that, we're getting in, maybe that's part of it. Maybe I'm convoluting everything so much that I'm not even allowing even in my restful, peaceful state, maybe somehow I'm still blocking it.
Yeah, that's a good thought. You could be. You're like upset with whatever and stressed out, even blocking. You're like the self-sabotage aspect of ourselves, that we're even sabotaging our own peace, you know, which would typically be that dreamland, right? I don't know, maybe.
I think quite a few things have to be in alignment with ourselves in order to have those meaningful dreams and to remember them, and for them to have that rejuvenating impact. That's why I was thinking, like with what Catherine said in regards to maintaining our bodies in a way that allows us um, to be at our best. And because I think that, I mean, what I've experienced for myself is that the morning, my dreams that I have in the morning, kind of like at the end of my sleep, are usually the most clear, the best ones the ones that I remember. I can go back into dreams. I can wake up there was a question like, what's your best, when do you feel the best during the day? And I had to think about it not very long, and I chose like 4 a.m. because if I wake up at 4 a.m., then I know I've got, another, 3, 4 hours to rest and relax. And if I can, and then I can put on some music to listen to, or a meditation thing or something, and then drift back off, or I can go back into a dream I was just having, and really kind of use it as a playground to have kind of that, dream vacation. There's sometimes I can't always interact. Sometimes I'm a spectator. Sometimes it's first person view. Other times it's less of my interaction. It's more like maybe not, maybe trying to keep from interacting. There's different. So there's not only these symbolic images, but then there's different styles of the dreams, and so I very rarely ever interpret my dreams correctly. It's usually just like, oh wow, that was so clear, I could see that, that's vivid, wow, that was really interesting. And I'll try to keep an eye open for something like that in the future, and then I'll get a deja vu later on, usually like 2 to 3 months later. But it's funny because I might have a dream that puts me in the place very clearly, but there's no emotion in it. So I'm left wondering where I am, how I got there, why I'm supposed to know or recognize it. And I'm sort of just left thinking, well, there's something like, so if I have a deja vu related to that dream, where I'm suddenly remembering the dream and going, wow, I'm been here before, then the only thing I can do is just to think like there's something here I need to be aware of, or be ready for, you know. But it's like last year last year we had the hurricane, and I wasn't worried about flooding because this area had never flooded before, but we did have like a double high tide as the hurricane came in, and we did end up flooding. And the night before we flooded, I had a dream. It was a first person dream where I'm looking down, and it happened. It wasn't a long dream. It was just like a I don't know, 30 seconds of a dream. And I'm looking down at my feet, and I'm standing on cement, and there's water up to my calves, and there are little minnows swimming around my toes. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And it's funny because I didn't make the connection that we possibly could be flooding the next day. But that's exactly what happened. And I had the deja vu when I went out on our front sidewalk, and I'm looking down, and it's the exact same view. Looking down, I'm not wearing any shoes. I'm standing in the water. I'm looking down, and I'm seeing minnows, saltwater minnows, and it's like, and when I first had the dream, I thought, well, maybe I was like I felt like I was maybe like I was on hard cement, so it was odd because, I've spent a lot of time out in nature and out in the water, and, you're standing in mud, and you're standing in mud, and you're looking down at your feet with minnows nibbling on your toes or something. But this was on, flat, solid, well-made cement, and I just didn't make the connection until the following day, early in the morning when I went out, and I showed a light down on my feet, and I'm standing in water, and there are minnows. And so, I mean, at that point in time, there was nothing I could do about it. It was just like, uh, see, told you so, or showed you, or, but there was no time between seeing that in the dream and it actually happening that I could have done anything, because at that time we were all uh, staying home, and you know um, we were all just kind of weathering out the storm. But that was it happens, but you don't know when a lot of the dreams don't come true, and they're just so hard to interpret. Even when you have a
I've
one.
never really associated a deja vu with maybe they came from dreams we've had and don't remember.
Yeah, that's what I always end up associating the deja vus with, is there was, if I can't remember the exact dream, it's like I've experienced this before somehow, either in a dream, or that's the feeling I get. That's a deja vu feeling that I get. I don't always remember the dream, but a lot of times I will remember that it came from a dream. A lot of times.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it can be dreams that I had a long time ago. So I remember one time I had a dream about being in a building with all these glass walls, and I had never experienced that sort of a building, or that environment before. And a few months later, I got a job, and the job was in a building where you could walk down a hallway, and you could look into these other office centers through these glass walls. And it was both odd, because I wouldn't think that you would want to necessarily build a building like that, but that's the way it was. And I again, it was like no feeling, no, like, but it gave me kind of the feeling like maybe I was on track, kind of like the plane type thing. Like if if I'm experiencing something that I dreamt about, somehow I'm in the right track, uh, or going in the right direction, or something like that. But it's like, I also get the idea that maybe there are different versions, and maybe I've had 3 or 4 dreams that could have been possible paths that I would take, and then I'm just experiencing a particular one. So I don't know. I try not to put too much into it, but it's always interesting when I do experience it. Some of my favorites are when pets that I aren't around any longer are in my dreams, and I get to play with my dogs, or my cats, or whatever that I've had in the past. And it's like, oh hey, how I've been trying to get better at recognizing. A lot of times I'm just a participant or a viewer of the dream, and I forget to like reach out and either like interact with the dream, or talk to the person in the dream and ask them, like, who are they, who are you, and what are we doing here. I just sort of am like uh, a just viewing it, and not really participating in it, because they seem to happen so fast sometimes. But I'm getting better at at realizing that I'm in the dream. Right? There's a couple of ways that you can realize you're in the dream. Like they say, try to read something, look at a clock, or read a sign. If you can't read it, then you're probably in a dream. because the clock won't look right. The words won't actually be there. You might know that what you're looking at is a bill or this or that, but actually try to read it, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm in a dream. All right, let me go do something else in the dream, or something. But that's where they talk about the lucid dreaming, when you realize you're in a dream, and then you can actually participate in the dream on purpose. But yeah, so 4 a.m. That's probably my favorite time. That's when I'm at my best. Right. Um, I've also noticed though that like sometimes you get in those dreams that you have I guess they call it the REM sleep, when you're having the last few hours or moments of your time that you're sleeping, when you're having that rapid eye movement and you're really deep sleep. And I think that's when I have my clearest dreams. But if I get woken up during that, that's most aggravating. It's kind of like what you're saying, Dan, where you all of a sudden, like, you're even though you've slept for 7.5, 8 hours, that last few minutes meant so much that it kind of if you're pulled out of that abruptly, it's like you're not quite there, and you're not rejuvenated, and be more irritable. But I don't know. I mean, we were talking earlier about our energies and dealing with friends, and all the things that we have to do, the responsibilities and stuff. And what drives us is what I've kind of been thinking about a lot lately, is that I want to act and take action on things out of joy and love and happiness and feeling good. But there's so much out there that weighs down on you, that the responsibility and the stress. And I actually think, and trying to figure out what drives me, I'm actually, unfortunately, I think I'm more of the stick rather than the carrot type person. If I'm, I get more motivated. I'd love to be driven out of creativity and joy, but what really, I think I end up being, getting more done if I'm under the gun with time and pain, I guess, like worry of being, missing out and stuff like that. And so I'll tend to wait to the last minute to put in projects or get things done, and that causes a lot of additional stress that you don't need. So I've been trying to reverse that and tackle that. But I mean, even if you have to go do a hard laborious job every day, if you can do it in an environment with people that you enjoy, and if you can do it out of love and joy and happiness, or at least you feel like you're fulfilling a purpose, helping people out or doing something that's worthwhile, then you can. I think that's probably where I prefer to be driven by. But I don't know. What about you all?
I don't know. For me, a lot of my work is just trying to get it done so I can do what I want to do, or I have
Yeah.
to get it done in order to be available for, what the kids need or whatever. So I don't know. I think I have a long list of things that need to get done that I just never managed to get to, unless, like you said, there's a deadline on it, but there's the other stuff that, I do every day that I know that if I don't do it, then we have no money coming in. And if I don't do it, then I'll have a whole mess of stuff I got to catch up on the weekend or whatever, and so I have to kind of motivate myself sometimes by just being like, look, okay, you can't have lunch until you get these 3 tasks done, or you can't, take a break till you get these things done, and or whatever. So, I don't know,
It's like
combination of things.
I was gonna say it's like and I'm going to say it this way. I'm not saying anything against your husband and son, but it's not like the husband fairy or the son fairy is going to come in and sit there and say, "Oh, let me do all this work for mom or my wife to help her out to get it," because probably it would get done wrong.
Well, they don't know how to do it anyway.
Well, but you
Yeah.
Or
get
they
what
We
I'm
all
don't do
have
saying.
it
our
right.
Yeah, we all
Yeah.
have our jobs. I mean, I don't want any part of doing their job, and I know my husband doesn't want any part of doing my job. And
No.
and the funny thing is for the most part, each of the things that I feel are important that I do every day as an individual thing, I don't mind doing them. I'm not upset by them. But what stresses me out is knowing I have all these different things to do, and how can I get them all done? And I get stressed out because I'll get wrapped up in a task, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's 5 minutes till the kids get off the bus, and I'm like, dang it, I wanted to get this done so that I could do this, so that I could do this, and there just doesn't, I'm not a great, what's the word? I guess time management is not my strong suit, I'm more of a one task person who, if I can focus on the task and I can do it and I get it done and I feel good about doing it, but there's 50 other things coming at me that needs to get done too. And just, I can't, I don't work well in a situation where I say, if I scheduled my time, say, okay, for an hour in the morning, I work on invoicing, and then the next hour I work on the bookkeeping, and the next hour I work on, I don't know, checking the emails or whatever. I don't work that way. It's not my method of operation. I work on what I'm working on, and an email pops up and I respond to the email and do whatever task is required by the email. And then I get back to my invoicing, and then I'm like, oh, shoot, I got the bills. I got to take care of the bills. I get it over here and I start doing the bills. And then I get a phone call and I'm like, okay, well, I got to get this truck and it's not where it's supposed to be, or it's wherever. I got to check on this truck. So then I'm like, over here. Then I'm into that, and then I'm like, well, okay, I got to call these drivers, and see what's going on with them. And it's just
The squirrel
I,
the squirrels.
I'm happiest when I'm working on one task, but it doesn't work that way. That's not how business works. It's not just one task, and I don't have enough of all the tasks to hire multiple people to each do one task. That doesn't work either. So.
And now you've reminded me that I have to pay bills now.
Right, it's the third, right? Yep.
Yeah.
In order to keep track of everything, I have to have this kind of ongoing, never-ending, constantly accumulating to-do list that, I cross things off as I accumulate them, and I write things down as I need to remember them. And that's the only thing that keeps me sane, is knowing I've written it down and I'll address it in the right time. And I just hope that, or not hope isn't the right word. I just have to trust in the universe to know that, okay, things will get done in the time that they were meant to get done in, I mean, that's the only thing I can do is, so. I don't know. But it's 11:30 in my time. I got to get busy.
Yeah.
I've got a guy coming for an in-person interview here in a little bit, and I got to get prepared for that. So.
Yeah.
You guys have a good day.
Okay. You too.
Great seeing you all this week.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Love you all.
Yeah.
Love ya.
Take care, man. Good to see you guys.
Adios, amigos.
Okay.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Bye-bye.
You're the messenger.
Bye.